straight World Cups and then say, oh, well, now it's totally broken because we didn't qualify for this, and not look at the act of 11 different players on the field against basically a semi-pro team in Trinidad is to be very disingenuous of what we ask of our players. The players really failed. That's the bottom line. Those 11 guys failed on that day, and a bigger group of 25 to 30 guys failed over a much longer period of time. But they did enough job to get to that one day to have to do the easiest task you could ask, and they couldn't get it done. That falls on them. No, pay to play was not playing left back. Sunil Gulati was not playing defensive central midfield.
Love it.
All of these things were. That's not what happened on the field that day. That day was a total player failure. And just as we need to hold everybody in U.S. soccer accountable for the things we don't like in the system, we need to hold the players responsible accountable for the things we don't like on the field.
And you said it perfectly. And I might add that I think culturally we're still evolving into soccer and what it means. Obviously, I think this opened the eyes. Obviously, the player criticism and the coaching criticism and the pointing at Gulati. I think that definitely, that was a backlash of them failing, and suddenly the culture of soccer suddenly became a lot more real and realized, summer 2018 now sucks. Now, luckily for me, I got my Swiss. Armand's got Iran. You got, I guess, Mexico, I'm assuming. So we still have
I'll be following myself.
Switzerland has to qualify through the playoff, but, I still have at least a dog in the fight, hopefully. But, I
guess we all have to find our second favorite teams now, right? I think that's the great loss of this, and we haven't really been through it kind of in the modern era, but there are a lot of people who put a lot into this program, fans, young kids who are going to miss a World Cup now, miss that formative experience of a World Cup. On the business side, there's a lot of business opportunities that are going to be missed over the next 12 months because of what's happened. So, there's a lot more than just on the field that was lost, but the reality, the weight of that loss and the consequences and acknowledging those, I think, are really, really important right now. And it's not to kind of harp on what we're going to miss, but it is to acknowledge that it matters to us that we've missed it, that it is a great big deal. And nothing in sports is a tragedy, but in the sense of whatever a sports tragedy can be, that this is that.
No, exactly, Sebastian. And before we let you go, I just wanted to ask you. I mean, with the vacant coaching situation, obviously Sarah Can is the interim, but I don't expect him to be the actual head coach and have that tag removed. Who do you want to see as a national team coach by the next for the next cycle? I mean, is there anyone that you have seen? You're like, oh wow, they would be an interesting fit for the United States national team, or is it too early to tell?
Well, I think it is too early to tell. I think it's really critical right now to name the president. I think that once we have the president and that person lays out their ideas, then I think we know what type of coach might best fit that. Here's some things, though, that I want from the coach. I want somebody who can very clearly articulate what the style will be.
Yes.
I also want that person to have records, proof that they have been able to verbalize a style and implement that style. I would hope that person being able to talk a style, implement a style, has done so at the international level. And if they've done so at the international level and they've done so in multiple places at the international level, that's even better in terms of what I would want on their resume. But I want somebody who can say, this is what the U.S. team is going to look like. This is the style that we're going to play, and be able to point to a team that they've run where they put that style in and it's worked. And if I can see that will mean a lot. I think there's a lot of really good candidates not too far from here. I think if you look down into the Mexican league, and it doesn't even have to be a Mexican manager, but a lot of people have pointed to somebody like a Miguel Herrera as somebody that would be interesting. Juan Carlos Osorio, the Colombian now in charge of Mexico, has been linked. Beyond him, there's a great run of really exciting Argentine coaches now. Yeah. One of them is Matias Almeida with Chivas. There's a lot of coaches right now from South America that kind of the best coaches in South America end up in the Mexican league plying their trade. And I think looking there for some young, innovative coach is a really, really good place to start, and somebody who's already in this hemisphere and already kind of understands some of the dynamics at play within CONCACAF.
It's real interesting that you say south of the border in MLS, not into Europe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one to rule anybody out.
Sure.
I think that there are really qualified coaches that could help this team out from Europe, and I just think that it's important for the United States, and I think this is maybe a longer topic, but just to touch on it briefly, you have to acknowledge the changing demographics in the U.S. and how specifically that impacts the player pool for U.S. soccer. And I think having a Latino coach, a Hispanic coach, even just a Spanish-speaking coach is a really critical way of acknowledging, addressing, and including a big part of the soccer culture in this country that, frankly, we a lot of times see ignored. If you talk about what U.S. soccer is and who's running it, the demographic looks very suburban. Let's just say if the socioeconomics look very suburban.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of other people in this country who are playing the sport, consuming the sport.
Sure.
No one ever talks about the biggest rating game in this country is never a Premier League game. It's always Chivas America. It's always a Liga MX.
Yep.
So we talk about Kyle Martino having maybe like a lot of penetration into the U.S. soccer culture. That's one sliver of it.
Sure.
Don't forget that there's a whole other part of the pie here that needs just as much attention. And I think having a coach that can excite that part of the American soccer pie is really critical at some point, if not in the next time.
Well, we love it, Sebastian. We love definitely some insight that Armand and I definitely did not think of. We appreciate it. Now we got the shameless plug here on the show. Where can we follow you on Twitter? Obviously, you're on ESPNFC, ESPN. So,
yes, I got on Twitter. It's at Sebi Salazar Foot, F-U-T at the end, like football. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook as well, and I'll be hosting FC on Thursday and Friday this week. So tune in. I'm sure we'll have plenty of U.S. roster talk, some MLS playoff stuff too. So it's a good time of year. It really is a fun time of year with everything that's going on.
It is a fun time. A lot of moving parts. So definitely be on the lookout. Thanks again, Sebastian. And
thanks, Sebastian.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Special guest, listeners. Caught you guys by surprise, didn't I? That was awesome.
You mean we?
We. I. Same thing. I'm just kidding, Armand.
I hate you.
It's okay. Interesting with the coaching. I wanted to touch one thing. I think you need to bring somebody who's not American. Spanish speaking, or somebody who's just not American. I think you need a manager who isn't tied to these players. Bruce Arena was tied to like the MLS and the culture of MLS in the national team, and just like, I guess it felt like there was a handshake under the table. Yeah, I'll call up quite a bit of MLS players, but bringing in somebody else, I don't know.
It'd be interesting to see a Hispanic coaching the league. MX point was really good. They have plenty of quality managers, and like I said, they're always getting fired. So
yeah. Anyway, let's talk about MLS playoff format, because we were going to do that before our special guest. You're excited?
Sorry, I'm excited because I've been sitting on this for 2 years now. Can I start?
I'm waiting for you to start. What's the big deal?
All right, so. Since 2012, MLS switched their format to stop having these cross-conference semifinals or finals. In 2010, FC Dallas actually made the cup. I think it was 2010 or 2000. There was 4 Western Conference teams in the conference finals. That's how weird MLS was. So they switched this format. And I've always had this gripe, and I've noticed it a lot because, FC Dallas has been a victim of it, and I'm not saying it's because of FC Dallas, but I have noticed this, and I've done some research on it, and John Strong, actually, shout out John Strong for actually making this point on the air.
Yep.
But I feel like the playoffs are almost unfair for the higher seed, and here's why. I don't feel like the higher seed has the home field advantage as they were advertised to get with a good league finishing. Take this stat. 19 out of 34 teams won their first leg as a lower seed 2012. That's the home. That is the home teams. That's 56%. 7 out of the 10 lower seeds in the conference finals advanced to the MLS Cup, and I can name them: Houston, LA in 2012, Real Salt Lake in 2013, the Galaxy in 2014, Columbus and Portland in 2015, and Seattle in 2016. And in a league that is it is so important to win your home games, and you can have losing records with your road games. Home field advantage is one of the most.
Pause there. Home field advantage is so crucial. Do you realize majority of Major League Soccer clubs do not have a winning road
Houston
record?
had one road win in the regular season. One. And they're now in the conference final.
Yeah, one there. Sporting KC had 2. San Jose had 3. Vancouver Whitecaps surprisingly had 6, but Seattle has 3. Right? Columbus has 4. Toronto has 7. Obviously, but the way road record is, it's a joke. If you don't, when you're a bad team when you can't win at home.
And yeah, exactly. And to do a comparison, I took top 6 teams in MLS, top 3 from each conference, and not top 6, but top 3 from each conference. And I looked at the difference between their home and away form. And so Toronto, they have 42 points at home, 27 away. And you might say, okay, that's okay. Toronto's the best team in MLS history, by the way. So let's get that out of the way.
By standing wise
in 35. Well, regular season.
Regular season, yeah. By standing wise, historically the best team.
Yeah, regular historically, yeah, historically. NYCFC at 35, 22 13. Now you get to these huge differences between Chicago, Portland, and Seattle. 39 points at home, 16 away. 37 points at home for Portland, 16 away. 38 home points for Seattle, 15 away. And I compared that to the Premier League. You might say, Armand, you just said don't compare the Premier League with the MLS even earlier.
You did, Armand.
Yeah, I did.
You did.
But the reason why I said that, I did that, is because I want to see if travel had an effect on these teams. There's only 2 teams that had a big effect on out of top 6, Spurs and Arsenal, who had comparable numbers. Man United had a better away form than they did home, points-wise. Yeah. Liverpool, the only difference is 6.
And this was last season. Last season, by the way.
Yes. Chelsea, the only difference is 9. Man City, the only difference is 2. Travel is not a big a difference in England or places in Europe because everything is so close. America is so spread out. You could go 5 hours and you wouldn't be out of Texas, but you'd be in like 3 different countries in Europe. It's insane. So quickly, I want something that maximizes a home field advantage for these teams, because going on the road sucks and it's not fair. There's no advantage. It's trying to replicate this idea of parity, which I don't really agree with.
Is it really parity? Is it parity?
Not even, to be honest with you, it's not even. So Grant Wall came up with this idea where you'd have the top 4 of the West in one group and the top 4 in the East in one group. You had the best team in the West host all the games, best team in the East, best team in the West, second best team in the West host 2 games, third best team hosts 1 game, and the 4th team is on the road for all 4 games. That, I think, is really good. But I want to improve on that by saying you have the knockout games, so you make sure you have the 12 teams. And you go by that because you know how much that makes regular season super important, because that makes seasons, the standing so important. Because you not want to be a team that has to host every single game. Would you want to be that team? I mean, no, the team that's on the road every single game.
But Armand, you're touching something really important here.
What is it?
Gate sales, ticket sales. There's the 2 legs are there because there's the need for money.
But the thing is, this is apparently allegedly, MLS teams want to move to a single elimination system, which I can't get behind. I feel like that's too easy for a team to make a fluky run. You
Well,
can
and
say
it's not even long enough. Soccer, like Champions League, it's played over 2